Hello and welcome. We are here in Delhi at the Auto Expo and at the Mercedes-Benz stand, and with me is Roland Folger, CEO and Managing Director of Mercedes-Benz India. Roland, thanks for joining us. I think everyone's got Auto Expo fever, but you've literally got it. You're not well, but I think it's an event you can't stay away from, even if you've got over 100 temperature.
No, nothing could ban me also. It's my first experience, like you said. And welcome again to our stand here on the Auto Show.
So obviously you've come to the Expo on a bit of a high. Great news for Mercedes-Benz. You've really overachieved your targets. Number one luxury car manufacturer by far in India. Tell us a bit about the journey.
It was a very exciting journey actually, because it started much longer than just 1 year ago. Basically on the back of initiatives that we had started by basically getting back into that position where we personally believe we truly are supposed to be. We started early on with customer activities. We started looking at our network. We started looking at our products. And last year, with 15 new products being launched, 15 new dealerships coming out, I think that contributed very strongly to the overall growth in the market segment.
That's interesting. So I just want to ask you if there is a weightage you can give. I know products are very important, but equally important is really the service and the service infrastructure, especially for luxury cars, because you've got a very demanding customer. Obviously these cars are very complex, they require a certain level of service. And to be honest, that has been a bit of a challenge for all luxury car makers, because that is one area where perhaps there's a bit of a gap. So just want to understand from your point of view, products, they're developed in Europe, they're developed for the world, not a big issue. But I think is service and really the people issue over here of training the right people, getting the right service advisors, getting the right experience for the customer, which frankly happens in the showroom. Yeah. Has that been your bigger challenge than launching products itself?
I wouldn't say challenge, because as a company we've always been extremely focused, trying to educate our own people, trying to make them match with the requirements that we have in the marketplace, and being able to deliver a really high-end, sophisticated technical product requires exactly that. So from our perspective, we just needed to put some more coals on the fire in that respect as well. And I think being able to gain the JD Power #1 or the place #1 for the award in after sales, and second year in a row now, has really proven that we're certainly going in the right direction. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a major influence in our relationship with the customers, therefore also to our overall sales figures.
And coming to the products itself, 15 new products, some of them more mass, some of them a little niche. Obviously rolling out these products stretches the bandwidth of an organization, and quite clearly, you're not a massive company over here, quite small. So how do you manage, or how do you have a cadence of products? I mean, does a lot of planning go into that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, like you said, you have to have an excellent planning. You need to know exactly what fits when. We have to have a very good relationship with headquarters, so what they promise us and deliver also needs to come at a given time. But I think the third part is really a highly motivated organization on our internal headquarters side in India here, as well as on the dealer side to support this. Because ultimately, it always gives the dealers also a chance at least once a month in 2015 to get closer to their customers, to invite them over, to basically treat them to a true experience of what Mercedes-Benz is all about.
Right, so that was 2015. Let's talk about 2016. Do you think you're going to set the bar even higher, or was 2015 the growth a little unusual. Is there more pressure on you now to, let's say, take the sales numbers even higher? And is it achievable this year? I know you've got the GLC. We'll talk a bit on that later. But just to understand your outlook for 2016.
I think with the experience of launching 15 new models in last year, that makes us feel very comfortable in the marketplace at the moment, no matter what and how many vehicles we will bring in on top of that. And whether the GLC can contribute to such a high degree is very, very depending on when we're going to launch the vehicle, but it's definitely going to be second half of this year. So there is not too much as volume contribution expected from that, but what we have seen in the past is that you have a launch year, and this is why we usually always, by tendency, a little bit shorter product, but in the second year, this is when the customer demand meets then also the availability of product. This is where you really reach peak levels. And this is why we're very confident that in 2016, we can continue exactly along the same lines.
So what you are saying, you are confident that you can maybe beat your 2015 numbers as well. I know we're early in the year, so that's putting you on the spot, but you think it's possible?
Well, everything depends on how the decision will be made about Delhi.
Right.
And about the diesel ban, because 80% of our vehicles that we sell in India are diesels, and 20% of our vehicles that we sell are in Delhi. So we need to wait how that pans out. But other sides, beside of that, I think we're very positive that we will have a good fighting chance again this year.
Right. So let's touch a bit on the diesel ban. Obviously, that's really put a spanner in the works, so to speak. Really disrupted the market for. I think there's no real gain in air quality as we've seen, especially if they are engines above 2 liters. And unfortunately, you've been caught on the wrong side of 2 liters. What is your strategy to manage this? Are you going to shift more petrol cars to Delhi? Are the customers leaning more towards petrol, or the customers saying, look, if we don't get a diesel, we don't want it? So, I mean, what's the dynamic, let's say, emerging right now?
It's something that we're dealing together with our dealers at the moment. Well, first of all, the first initial reaction is everybody was running into gasoline versions. My personal observation is we have to be careful in doing that. We are securing the pipeline, so we can always switch over to more gasoline versions or petrol versions. But I want to put a word of caution in here, because we have also set for ourselves in India relatively strong CO2 targets and reduction targets. And whenever you switch from a diesel car into a petrol car,
the CO2 goes up.
The CO2 goes up by 25%. So it's something that we need to see more as a holistic picture and how that can pan out. I think everybody is in turmoil at the moment and seeing how will this work out, but it's something that we follow up very closely. We are talking to the relevant authorities on the issue. We've had good results in our discussions there. Let's see how March is.
Right. And a very important launch for you here at the Auto Expo, the GLC. Clearly this fills probably the last gap in your entire product portfolio. It slots in between the GLE and the GLA. So are you really hopeful of this car kind of really even taking your SUV performance or sales volume to the next level?
I wouldn't say hopeful, I'm rather confident. No, we believe that this car has a great future in India. Like you said, it fills a gap that so far we have not been able to fulfill with any specific product. It's also a car that basically now concludes the whole range of our SUV products. And just a small reminder, the growth of that segment alone was 2014 to 50 was 100% for us. So we ride on the back of a very, very strong demand wave for these kind of vehicles. So that will hit the market just running.
Right. And coming again, sticking to the SUVs, can you tell us, was the SUV segment or your SUV products one of the key drivers for growth for last year, and will it continue to be growth? And really, in terms of the SUV portfolio, has that turned out to be the main pillar of your product range?
Percentage-wise, certainly, but then again, it was on a much lower basis. In overall numbers, I think the C-Class is still outselling the new vehicles on a 2-to-1 basis. But what we take as a strong vote of confidence is that the increase of demand from the customers is certainly there. So the new future growth that we see happening in the marketplace will definitely come stronger from these vehicles than from the traditional segments.
let's talk a bit about the C-Class, which you talked about. It's turned out to be your best-selling car. It's overtaken the E-Class, which is quite something. Obviously, the E-Class in a run-out phase, as we know, it's at the end of its life cycle. Is that the reason you feel, or is it that people find that the C-Class is offering a lot of the E-Class at maybe a lesser cost, so they see it as better value?
Yeah.
What do you feel is the reason for the C-Class really becoming the champion of your product range?
I think the C-Class offers you everything that you look for in the sedan. The spaciousness inside, everything is there. And it's been closely positioned to the E-Class. I have to fully admit that. Although the E-Class still, as far as rear seat capacity and comfort is concerned, is still the benchmark in that segment.
And that's important in India.
And that's very important in India. But then again, if you see the overall look and feel in the C-Class, you feel like we're in a small S-Class. And that is also an important key feature for Indian people and Indian customers. They want to be in a vehicle where they feel properly protected. With all the new features, and in the C-Class we have a lot more self-driving customers, we see that there is a strong trend at the moment towards that direction. But then again, rest assured, the new E-Class is going to have features that put the balance right again. So we're eagerly looking forward to it.
So do you think it's a temporary situation and the E-Class would come back? And is that, I would imagine it's more desirable to have the E-Class as your volume or big seller, because obviously margins are better on it, it's a more expensive car, and just from a profitability point of view, it's a better bet.
This doesn't drive our volume allocations.
Of course, but it's just nicer to have a car that has more margin on it, selling more.
In that sense, I would like to sell more S-Classes, frankly speaking.
Right.
But no, you're absolutely right. I just believe that the E-Class has such a strong following, especially in a country like India, that Indians will just gravitate once the new E-Class comes into place. Yes, also by our discussion here, word gets out that the new E-Class is in the making. We encourage people to still buy the old one naturally, because the new one is going to only be launched somewhere next year. So there's still time yet. But we're confident that both in the mix at the moment with the existing C and E-Class, it works out fine for us as a brand, and next year will be even more exciting.
Just sticking with the E-Class a bit, there's a strong legacy of E-Class in India. We started with the W124, obviously not successful. Then we came with the 210, 211, and then onwards. So do you think the heritage or the legacy, or let's say the longevity of the E-Class badge also has some kind of a role to play in India?
Of course. I believe people, they still see vehicles that their father has bought 20, 25 years ago. They still see that on the street. We're just celebrating now the 20th year of the E-Class this year as well. So there is a lot of heritage to look backward on, also from an Indian customer perspective. And the E-Class has always shaped the brand of Mercedes-Benz in the strongest way.
Let's talk a bit on going further up, talking on the S-Class. It's won a lot of awards. It's won a lot of our comparisons. Clearly the benchmark, but of course competition coming as well. But from the S-Class point of view, a lot of technology in that car as well. Some of the technology can have more technology if our regulations allow, especially with certain frequencies which are still not permitted. The S-Class, can you give a little bit of a perspective on that model? Who the target audience is? Are you happy with the volumes? Is there scope for more variants? Right now you just have maybe 2 possible variants. You've got the Maybach versions also there. So I just want your understanding on that super luxury end of this segment. Is there scope for growth, or is it still quite limited?
Well, we most likely will be introducing an additional variant this year as well. But I think the S-Class has such a dedicated and well-defined place in the heart of customers. It's very difficult to push away from. Just as a worldwide figure, I think last year we sold more than BMW and Audi put together with their respective vehicles in that brand segment. I think that speaks volumes about what customers really prefer in the marketplace. And whether these customers are dignitaries, whether they are just successful businessmen, whether they are celebrities, or whether they are government representatives, there is such a strong feeling in favor of the S-Class. It doesn't really, let's say, make us very, very worried.
And again, sticking to the S-Class, you've got 2 versions. You've got the 350, you've got the 500. Clearly, I would imagine the 350 is the one everyone goes for, because A, it's phenomenally refined. You don't think it's a diesel. Also good value. Just to understand the differences in the customers, because I think there is that very small sliver of people who want the refinement of a petrol and will pay the extra for the
Yes.
the 500.
And I believe we will have a solution for those customers because we strongly believe in making naturally these ends meet and to provide what customers really expect from us. In that case, we're just in between also engines, as we call it sometimes, and we'll be providing something along those lines very, very soon.
So what you're saying is we could have a different engine alternative as well.
That's certainly a possibility.
Right. Okay. So good. You're not quite letting on, but it is possible.
Leave some surprises to us. We can't show everything here on the show.
Let's talk a bit about the Auto Expo.
Yes.
I mean, how's it been for you? How's the response been? And these shows, what do they really do for the brand? Frankly, everyone knows Mercedes.
Yeah.
Do you see this place actually to sell cars, or is it just a bit of touch and feel of the brand, get some customers in, get your dealers in, make them feel a bit good about it? Because I don't know whether this really is a sales platform for you.
It's less of a sales platform. People don't come here to purchase a car. There are other shows around Southeast Asia that work much, much more like a sales show. This is more like what we consider a brand shaper show. And for us it's fantastic because after winning back the #1 position in India, it was important for us to also create an atmosphere where we feel we are properly represented as a company that is back in place #1. That in combination is showing some of the most exciting products that we have. The now full line of sport utility vehicles available. It helps us greatly in communicating to customers things that are relevant to them and basically position again Mercedes-Benz in the top-end luxury segment with vehicles like the Maybach on the one hand as a sub-brand, on the other hand the AMG versions that we offer to customers, on the other side as the sportive sub.
Right. And just winding down a bit, we haven't talked about AMG, your performance brand. You all are persisting very hard with it. Is there a real logic in putting so much resource, so much marketing on, let's say, products which are really selling in very small numbers? But is it more to do with a brand positioning, strategic, or do you think you can genuinely get volumes to make a business case out of it?
It's as usual a mix of both. We have the target clearly set that we want to make a business case out of this. We have identified volumes. We have identified a growth path on how to get to those volumes. I'm happy to constate at the moment that we're on that path. So there's nothing missing at the moment. The market is not as tricky as it could have been. We're very happy with what we're seeing so far. And you have to go to some of our AMG centers, talk to customers there, and get that inspiration of excitement in their eyes. And these are movers and shakers in the industry. These are really important people. They are brand builders as well in their own circle of friends. And I think for us, it was a long time that we entered that segment. And AMG is the perfect brand to do that because they have also now an offering everything from the A43 all the way up to the S63.
Right.
So, fantastic.
I just want to understand, obviously you don't give sales numbers, but in terms of percentage growth, how much has AMG grown, let's say, 2015 versus 2014?
We grew by about 40%.
40%.
Which is expected in a ramp-up phase, more or less. So we're not going overboard with this issue. We're just following our planning that we have. This year we will see another continuous growth. We're looking even into, at the moment we have 5 so-called AMG performance centers. We're even looking, because there is the demand, to increase that number. So we are reacting to customer needs at the moment. And as long as there is additional customer needs, we will be opening AMG performance centers.
But you said 40%, that's quite a high figure. Is it fair to assume that your growth is largely been, let's say, spurred by the SUV segment in AMG? Because a lot more practical, a lot more usable, you get performance as well as everyday usability.
Yes.
So what the SUV AMG is a large driver of growth for AMG?
It was basically not only the SUVs, it was also the GLA and CLA that contributed, because they created a completely new price point for such vehicles, and they are true AMGs. If you've ever driven one, it's fantastic. But then again, naturally also the growth that we saw overall in the SUV sector has contributed to that greatly. So
we haven't talked about the small car segment. Now, quite frankly, one would imagine that to be the largest segment. But clearly, I don't know whether it's a price to size ratio issue where people don't want to spend a lot of money on a smaller car. Do we still have that mindset in India, or is this a global trend where the center of gravity for you is somewhere between C and E class as far as the passenger vehicles go? So would it be fair to assume that maybe the small, the small range of cars, your new generation compact cars, the time is yet to come in terms of getting the volume up?
I think that's a segment that still has yet to be developed. So you're right on the point there. My personal observation is people need to start to learn. And we have only been in the market now, 3-4 years with these vehicles. They need to learn that there's such an offer in the first place. Now they need to start to accept that the brand that they traditionally always associated with E-Class, that brand also offers now something in a entry class where they were only suspecting Japanese products to happen. And once they try out, I believe strongly that it makes a lot of sense also to produce these vehicles locally. It gives us a different price point. It makes it more accessible to people. And in the future, I think the sky's the limit really on these products.
So on that very optimistic note,
Yes.
Roland, good talking to you.
Thank you,
And clearly India, a very, very buoyant market for you, a very market with a lot of focus. And I'm sure a lot more action to come from Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, definitely, rest assured.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you.
Well, that was a very interesting conversation with Roland Folger, the Managing Director and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India. Clearly, Mercedes on a roll in this market. 2015, they had record sales, soared to the #1 position, and it looks like 2016, they are set, or so they say, to continue their bull run in this market. A lot of plans, a lot of new models expected from Mercedes-Benz, and Mr. Folger also let on that new variants on certain models like the S-Class also coming. But clearly, the three-pointed star is the star of the luxury car market.